The first police officer arrived at the motel at 3:17 in the morning. The second one was already inside. I didn't know that yet. If I had, I wouldn't have left the office. I was working the overnight desk at the Briarwood Motor Lodge, a 20-room motel beside Highway 9. Calling it the Briarwood Motor Lodge made it sound more respectable than it was. There were no briars. There were very few trees. And the closest thing we had to luxury was an ice machine that occasionally produced ice. Most guests stayed because we were cheap, accepted cash, and didn't ask why someone needed a room for only 4 hours. My manager, Carl, called that flexibility. The police called it several other things. I worked from 11 at night until 7 in the morning. Most shifts involved checking in truck drivers, explaining why the vending machine had taken someone's dollar, and watching security cameras with the image quality of underwater archaeology. Nothing truly frightening had ever happened there. Unpleasant, yes. Strange, regularly. Once, a guest reported someone crying inside the wall. It turned out to be a cat trapped behind a bathroom cabinet. The cat was fine. The cabinet never emotionally recovered. The night this happened was a Tuesday in November. Rain had been falling since sunset, and only 6 rooms were occupied. At 2:40 a.m., a woman entered the office carrying a little girl. The woman looked about 30. Her hair was wet, and she wore a gray sweatshirt several sizes too large. The girl was maybe 5 or 6. She was asleep with her face pressed against the woman's shoulder. The woman asked whether we had a ground floor room. I said we did. She paid cash for room 8. When I asked for identification, she hesitated. I have a picture of my license on my phone. Normally I wasn't supposed to accept that. Carl enjoyed rules because he rarely worked enough hours to be inconvenienced by them. But the woman looked exhausted. There was a dark mark across one side of her jaw. I pretended not to notice it. She showed me the photograph. Her name was Rachel Mercer. I copied the information into the system and handed her the key card. Room 8 is around the left side. Park directly outside it. Does that door have a chain? Yes. And the windows lock? They do. She looked toward the parking lot. If anyone asks, can you please not tell them I'm here? That request should have worried me. Instead, it made me think she was hiding from a boyfriend or husband. People often imagine motel clerks as neutral background characters. We were actually unpaid witnesses with access to clean towels. I can't give out guest information, I said. She nodded. Then she asked, even to police? If they have the proper paperwork, that's different. She stared at me for a second. Please call me before you let anyone near the room. I told her I would. She carried the girl outside and drove around the building. Her car was an older silver Honda with damage near the rear wheel. I watched her enter room 8 on the security monitor. She stood outside for several seconds, looking in both directions before opening the door. At 3:02, the office phone rang. The caller ID displayed private number. I answered. Briarwood Motor Lodge. A man said, "Did a woman check in with a little girl?" His tone was calm, not angry. That somehow made the question worse. I can't confirm whether someone is staying here. She's driving a silver Honda. I still can't confirm that. The man breathed into the phone. Her name is Rachel. I didn't answer. She took my daughter. If you believe a child has been abducted, call the police. I already did. The line disconnected. I immediately called room 8. Rachel answered on the first ring. Someone called asking about you, I said. She didn't speak. He knew about the girl and the car. Did you tell him our room number? No. Did he say his name? No. I heard a lock turning on her end. Then the metal scrape of the security chain. If anyone comes, please call me. I will. Don't believe him. Who is he? She paused. My husband. Before I could ask anything else, headlights swept across the office windows. A dark SUV entered the parking lot. It had red and blue lights flashing behind the grille. The vehicle stopped directly outside the office. A man stepped out wearing a sheriff's uniform and a transparent rain jacket. He was tall and broad with closely cut hair and a dark mustache. A badge was clipped above his shirt pocket. A gun sat in a holster on his belt. He entered without knocking. Evening. Morning, technically. He didn't react. That should have been my first clue. Real police officers may not appreciate bad jokes, but most at least acknowledge that you've inconvenienced them. He placed one hand on the counter. Deputy Warren, County Sheriff's Office. We're looking for a woman and a child. He gave me Rachel's full name. I remembered what she had said. Don't believe him. Is the child in danger? We believe so. Do you have a warrant? This is an active child abduction investigation. We don't need a warrant to prevent immediate harm. He said it smoothly. Like he had practiced. Maybe what he said was legally correct. I didn't know. My legal education consisted mostly of television and one argument with a parking officer. He took a printed photograph from his jacket. It showed Rachel and the little girl standing outside a house. She checked in less than an hour ago, he said. Silver Honda. Where is she? I can call the room and ask her to come here. No, we don't want to warn her. The deputy looked toward the monitor behind me. The camera covering the east side of the motel showed rooms 5 through 10. Rachel's car was visible outside room 8. His eyes stopped on it. You've already given me the room, he said. I turned slightly, blocking his view of the monitor. If you're police, dispatch can contact the motel. His expression changed. Only a little, but the friendly part disappeared. My partner is watching the rear exit. We need access to that room now. Can I see your identification? He tapped the badge on his chest. Your department identification. He stared at me. Then he took out a black leather wallet and opened it briefly. There was a laminated card inside. I saw his photograph, a county seal, and the name Daniel Warren. He closed it before I could read anything else. Satisfied? Not really. But everything about him looked right. The uniform, the equipment, the vehicle outside. Even the rainwater dripping from the brim of his hat made him look like someone who had official reasons to ruin your evening. Then I noticed his shoulder patch. It said Brighton County Sheriff. We weren't in Brighton County. The county line was 7 miles north of the motel. This is Marsh County, I said. We're assisting them. Where are their officers? On the way. Then I'll wait for them. He leaned closer. There is a 6-year-old child in that room with a potentially dangerous adult. She's her mother. You don't know what she is. That sentence stayed with me. Not who she is. What she is. He pointed toward the keycard machine. Make me a master key. I picked up the office phone. I'm calling the sheriff's department to verify. He reached across the counter and pressed down the receiver. Hard. The plastic cracked beneath his hand. You don't need to do that. The office became very quiet. The rain clicked against the windows. His hand remained on the phone. I could see a pale line on his finger where he had recently removed a wedding ring. Then a radio on his shoulder produced a burst of static. A man's voice said, "Any problem?" Deputy Warren lifted the radio. No problem. His eyes stayed on me. He's cooperating. I hadn't agreed to anything. The officer smiled. Make the key. I moved toward the computer. Instead of opening the keycard program, I clicked the silent alarm icon beneath the reservation screen. Nothing happened. Carl had shown me the alarm when I started working there. Pressing it was supposed to notify the security company and display a small green dot on the screen. There was no green dot. The officer watched me. Is something wrong? The computer is slow. He looked around the office. A locked door behind me led to the laundry room and the manager's apartment upstairs. To my right was the main entrance. To my left, a service door opened into the rear parking area. I had 2 possible exits. The officer stood between me and both of them. I opened the keycard program. Then the office lights went out. The security monitors went black. Only the emergency light above the entrance remained on. The officer didn't seem surprised. He raised his radio. Power's down. The other man answered, Copy. That was when I understood. His partner hadn't accidentally found the rear exit. He had cut the motel's electricity. Deputy Warren took a flashlight from his belt. Finish making the key. The machine needs power. It actually had a battery backup. I didn't mention that. He walked around the counter. I backed toward the laundry room door. Open it manually. I don't have physical keys for the rooms. He placed his hand on his holster. Don't make this difficult. I reached behind me and found the laundry room handle. Locked. I kept a key for it on the ring attached to my belt, but opening it would take several seconds. The officer stepped closer. Then someone knocked on the office window. 3 slow taps. A second officer stood outside. He wore the same uniform. Unlike Warren, he didn't have a raincoat or hat. His uniform was completely dry. He held a metal pry bar against his leg. Warren looked at me, my partner. The second officer smiled through the glass. There was something deeply wrong with seeing a police uniform and feeling less safe because of it. My mobile phone was beneath the counter. I needed a distraction. The physical master key is in the safe, I said. Where? Manager's apartment. I pointed at the laundry room door. Upstairs. Warren looked at the locked door. Open it. I removed the keyring from my belt. My hand was shaking badly enough that the keys rattled. The second officer remained outside, watching us. I unlocked the laundry room. As soon as the door opened, I threw the entire ring of keys into the darkness. Warren turned his flashlight toward the sound. I shoved a rolling laundry cart into him. It struck his knees and pushed him against the wall. I ran through the room and pulled the door shut behind me. He grabbed it before it closed. I pushed from my side. He pushed from his. The door opened several inches. His hand reached through the gap. I slammed the door against his fingers. He shouted. The pressure disappeared. I locked it. Something heavy struck the other side. The frame shook. I took my phone from my pocket. No signal. That part of the motel always had poor reception, and apparently terror did not improve the service. The laundry room had no exterior exit. There was a staircase leading to Carl's apartment, but the apartment door at the top was locked. Carl wasn't there. He lived with his girlfriend most nights and used the apartment mainly to store paperwork and avoid paying for an actual office. I climbed the stairs and tried his door. Locked. Below me, Warren kicked the laundry room door again. Wood cracked near the latch. I called emergency services. The call failed. I tried again. One bar appeared. The call connected. A dispatcher answered, but I could barely hear her. Briarwood Motor Lodge, I whispered. 2 men dressed as police are trying to enter a guest's room. The signal broke apart. I repeated the address. Are you in a secure location? She asked. Before I could answer, the laundry room door burst open. I ran up the remaining stairs and kicked Carl's apartment door near the lock. It didn't open. I kicked it again. Nothing. Carl had bought a better door for his empty apartment than he had for any paying guest. That felt personally insulting. Warren started up the stairs. I threw myself against the door. The frame split and I fell into the apartment. I kicked the broken door shut and pushed a filing cabinet against it. The dispatcher was still connected. She told me deputies were being sent. Make sure they're real, I said. I crossed to the apartment window. It overlooked the rear half of the motel. Room 8 was below and slightly to the right. The second fake officer stood outside Rachel's door. He was knocking. Sheriff's Department. Rachel, we need to speak with you. The curtain moved. He stepped closer to the window. Your daughter's father reported an abduction. Open the door. Warren began hitting the apartment door downstairs. I called room 8 from my mobile. Rachel answered quietly. 2 men are outside your room, I said. They aren't police. I know. How? Because one of them is my husband. I looked down. The dry officer had moved beneath the metal awning. He looked up at me. Even from the second floor, I could see him smile. Rachel continued. He used to work courthouse security. He still has friends with uniforms. Is there another way out of your room? The bathroom window. The bathroom windows were narrow and opened only halfway. A child could fit through one. An adult probably couldn't. Send your daughter out first, I said. There's a drainage ditch behind the rooms. Tell her to hide there. I'm not sending her out alone. Warren struck the apartment door again. The filing cabinet moved. I searched Carl's desk for anything useful. Receipts, old magazines, a half-empty bottle of whiskey, a small wooden baseball bat with Briarwood Softball 2019 printed along the side. I took the bat. Carl's team had lost every game that season, but I decided the bat deserved another opportunity. Below me, Rachel's bathroom window slid open. A little girl climbed out. Rachel lowered her to the ground and followed head first. She got stuck at the waist. The fake officer heard the noise. He ran around the side of the building. I opened Carl's window. Behind you, I shouted. Rachel pulled herself free and grabbed her daughter. The officer reached them near the drainage ditch. He caught the back of Rachel's sweatshirt. She fell. The little girl screamed. I didn't think. I climbed out of Carl's window onto the metal awning. It bent beneath my weight. The fake officer looked up. I jumped. The awning collapsed. I landed badly, rolled off the edge and struck the wet pavement. For a few seconds, I couldn't breathe. The officer released Rachel and moved toward me. His hand went to his holster. I swung the baseball bat from the ground. It struck his wrist. The gun fell onto the pavement. It wasn't a gun. It was a black plastic replica. That made me feel slightly better until he kicked the bat out of my hands. Rachel grabbed her daughter and ran toward the highway. The man chased them. I grabbed his ankle. He fell face first into a puddle. He turned and hit me across the side of the head. My vision flashed white. Then Rachel struck him with something. It was the lid from the motel's metal trash can. The sound was surprisingly musical. The man dropped to one knee. Warren appeared in Carl's broken window above us. He aimed a real handgun downward. Stop. Everyone stopped. Warren climbed onto the collapsed awning. For a large man wearing wet boots, he had far too much confidence in damaged metal. The remaining section gave way. He fell through it and landed inside a decorative hedge. That gave us about 5 seconds. We used all of them. Rachel picked up her daughter. I took the fake gun from the pavement. We ran toward the front office. The dark police SUV still idled near the entrance. Its driver's door was open. The keys were inside. Rachel climbed into the passenger seat with the girl. I got behind the wheel. The second man reached the SUV and pulled at my door. I locked it. Warren emerged from the hedge and raised his handgun. I put the SUV in reverse. He stepped aside as I backed across the parking lot. Then I drove toward the highway. Warren fired once. The rear window shattered. Rachel covered her daughter with her body. I turned onto Highway 9. The dashboard looked convincingly official. Mounted radio, spotlight controls, siren switches, a computer between the seats. There was even a shotgun rack. The rack was empty. I turned on every emergency light I could find. Then I pressed the siren. If we were going to steal a fake police vehicle, we might as well be unpleasant about it. A marked patrol car appeared ahead. For one terrible second, I didn't know whether it was real. I slowed down. 2 more vehicles followed it. The dispatcher on my phone told me they were Marsh County deputies. I stopped in the middle of the road with my hands visible. The real officers ordered us out of the SUV. I had never been so happy to lie face down on wet asphalt. Warren and the other man tried to escape in Rachel's Honda. They made it less than 2 miles before deputies stopped them. Warren surrendered. Rachel's husband ran into a field. A police dog found him hiding in a drainage pipe about an hour later. His real name was Eric Mercer. He had worked as a security officer at the county courthouse until he was fired for accessing restricted records. Rachel had left him 3 days earlier. She had a temporary protection order and planned to stay with her sister in another state. Eric had been monitoring her phone through a family location account she didn't know was still active. When she turned the phone off, he began calling motels along the highway. He found her on his 4th attempt. The private number that called me belonged to him. Daniel Warren wasn't a deputy. His first name wasn't even Daniel. He was a former bail enforcement agent named Paul Danner. Most of the uniform had been purchased legally. The badge was counterfeit. The shoulder patches were real. They had been stolen from a dry cleaning company that serviced the Brighton County Sheriff's Office. The SUV had been bought at a government auction. The emergency lights, radio equipment, and decals were added later. From 10 feet away, it looked authentic. That was all they needed. Police found printed motel maps inside the vehicle. Room 8 had been circled before the men arrived. Eric had called the motel from the parking lot while Warren waited near the rear electrical box. They already knew which room Rachel was in. They weren't asking me for information. They were checking whether I would cooperate. The silent alarm hadn't failed because of the power cut. Carl had canceled the security service 6 months earlier to save money. He had forgotten to tell the night staff. Carl visited me in the hospital the following afternoon. I had a concussion, 6 stitches above my ear and a fractured wrist. He brought flowers from the hospital gift shop and apologized for the alarm. Then he asked whether the motel could charge Rachel for the broken bathroom window. I told him to leave. The Briarwood closed the following year. Carl said rising insurance costs made the business impossible. I like to believe the building simply developed standards. Rachel and her daughter moved out of state. She sent me a Christmas card once. The front showed a snowman wearing a police hat. Inside, she had written, "We check identification now. I never worked another overnight motel shift." People sometimes ask how I knew the officers were fake. The honest answer is that I didn't. Not at first. The badges looked real. The uniform looked real. The vehicle looked real. Even the language sounded real. What saved us wasn't noticing one magical mistake. It was refusing to ignore 10 small ones. The wrong county patch, the broken phone, the disabled power, the pressure to act before real local officers arrived, and the way Warren described Rachel. Not as a mother, not as a suspect, not even as a person. You don't know what she is. I remember that sentence more clearly than the gunshot, because a real officer may arrive at your door with authority. A fake one arrives expecting your fear to do most of his work for him. And if someone wearing a badge becomes angry because you want to verify it, keep the door locked. Whatever he came to do probably requires you to open it. Before continuing, please take a moment to subscribe the channel and tell me in the comment where are you watching from and what time it is right now. The emergency dispatcher said 6 words that made my hands tighten around the steering wheel. "Ma'am, that is not one of ours." I looked in the rearview mirror. The police car was still behind me. Its red and blue lights filled the inside of my car, flashing across the empty passenger seat and the scrubs I had thrown over the back. The dispatcher lowered her voice. "Do not stop. Keep driving." The officer behind me turned on his siren. Then he accelerated. But I should probably explain how I ended up driving down an empty highway at 2 in the morning with a fake police officer chasing me. At the time, I was working night shifts at St. Matthew's Medical Center. I'm a respiratory therapist, which means I spend most of my working life helping people breathe while forgetting to do it properly myself. My shift usually ended at 1:30 a.m. Most nights, I would leave through the employee entrance, buy coffee from a vending machine that seemed to use melted plastic as a primary ingredient, and drive 35 minutes back to my apartment. There were 2 ways home. The interstate was faster, but roadwork had closed one of the exits that week. The other route took me along County Road 16, a narrow stretch of highway surrounded by woods, farmland, and absolutely nothing useful. No stores, no houses near the road, no streetlights, just 12 miles of darkness and the occasional deer waiting beside the trees, like it had recently purchased life insurance. I had taken that route 4 nights in a row without any problems. On the 5th night, I noticed a car parked across from the employee exit. It was a dark sedan, probably black or navy blue. The headlights were off, but the engine was running. I only noticed because exhaust was drifting behind it in the cold air. There was someone in the driver's seat. I couldn't see his face. That didn't immediately frighten me. Hospitals attract strange parking behavior. People wait for relatives, take phone calls, or sit in their cars because they aren't ready to hear whatever the doctor is about to tell them. I got into my car and left. The dark sedan pulled out about 30 seconds later. It followed me through 3 turns. When I entered the highway, it entered behind me. I told myself it was nothing. Then it stayed behind me for 11 miles. It never passed, even when I slowed down. Eventually, it turned into a gas station while I continued toward my apartment. I forgot about it by morning. Or at least, I convinced myself I had. The following night, the sedan was back. Same place, same dark headlights, same engine running. This time I asked the security guard at the employee entrance if he knew who it belonged to. His name was Leonard. He was in his 60s and treated every minor inconvenience as evidence that society had peaked sometime around 1987. He looked through the window. Could be someone waiting for an employee. At 2 in the morning? Romance doesn't follow business hours. Neither does stalking. Leonard looked at me. That too. He stepped outside to approach the car. Before he crossed the road, the sedan pulled away. Leonard wrote down part of the license plate, but it was too dark to see the entire number. He offered to walk me to my car. I accepted. There is a certain age when having someone walk you across a parking lot stops feeling embarrassing and starts feeling like a free security upgrade. The sedan didn't follow me that night. I didn't see it again for almost a week. Then, on a Thursday morning, my shift ran late. A patient had been admitted shortly before 1, and I didn't leave the hospital until 2:10. It had started raining. Not heavily, but enough to make the road shine beneath my headlights. I considered taking the interstate. Then I remembered the construction and chose County Road 16. That decision bothered me for a long time afterward. About 10 minutes into the drive, headlights appeared behind me. They came up quickly. I checked my speed, 52 in a 55 zone. The vehicle stayed close for a while, then backed away. I couldn't see what kind of car it was. The headlights were too bright. I changed lanes when the road widened near an old quarry entrance. The other vehicle changed lanes too. That was when I felt the first real warning. Not fear exactly. More like the quiet internal voice that says something is wrong before your brain has collected enough evidence to explain why. I increased my speed. The vehicle did the same. Then red and blue lights came on behind the windshield. I actually felt relieved. A police officer was much better than the alternative my imagination had been building. I slowed down and searched for somewhere to pull over. There was no shoulder on that section of the road, only a shallow drainage ditch and trees. A reflective sign appeared ahead. Old Mill Rest Area, 1 mile. I turned on my hazard lights to show the officer I had seen him. I planned to stop at the rest area, where there would at least be space to get off the road. The siren sounded once. A short electronic burst. The vehicle moved closer. Something about it looked wrong. The flashing lights were mounted inside the windshield rather than on the roof. That wasn't necessarily unusual. Unmarked police cars used internal lights, but the headlights were still so bright that I couldn't see the vehicle's grille. I picked up my phone and called emergency services. I felt slightly ridiculous. I expected the dispatcher to tell me to pull over and stop wasting her time. Instead, she asked for my location, direction of travel, and license plate. I'm on County Road 16, heading east. An unmarked officer is trying to stop me. Have you pulled over? Not yet. There's nowhere safe. Keep your hazard lights on. I'll verify the stop. She asked me to describe the vehicle. Dark sedan, red and blue lights inside the windshield. I can't see the plate. There was a brief pause. Then she said those 6 words. Ma'am, that is not one of ours. I looked in the mirror again. The sedan was less than 1 car length behind me. What do you mean? There are no marked or unmarked units conducting a traffic stop in that area. Do not stop. Continue east toward the Miller's fuel station. Deputies are being sent to you. The fuel station was 8 miles away. The old rest area was less than half a mile ahead. The sedan's siren came on and stayed on. My phone was connected to the car speakers, so the dispatcher could hear it. He's using a siren now, I said. I hear it. Stay in your vehicle. Do not pull over. The sedan moved into the opposite lane and came alongside me. I finally saw it clearly. It was an old black Ford Crown Victoria. The kind of car people still associate with police, even though most departments stopped using them years ago. There was a white circular sticker on the front door. From a distance, it looked like an official department emblem. The driver lowered his window. He wore a dark uniform and a wide-brimmed campaign hat. He pointed aggressively toward the side of the road. I kept driving. He raised a handheld radio to his mouth, pretending to speak into it. Then he pointed at me again. The dispatcher asked what he was doing. He's telling me to stop. Do not make eye contact. Keep driving. That advice would have been more useful 10 seconds earlier. I looked directly at him. He was a white man, maybe 45 or 50. Heavy face, short gray beard. He wore mirrored glasses despite the fact that it was after 2 in the morning. That was somehow the detail that frightened me most. Anyone can purchase flashing lights. Anyone can purchase a uniform. But wearing sunglasses in the dark requires a special level of commitment to being unsettling. He dropped back behind me. A moment later, a loudspeaker crackled. Pull over immediately. The voice sounded distorted but calm. Official. Driver, pull into the rest area. The entrance was directly ahead. I drove past it. The man's tone changed. Pull over now. The dispatcher told me real deputies were 6 minutes away. I had to stay on the highway. Then the sedan hit the back of my car. It wasn't a hard impact, more of a deliberate tap. My car moved forward, and I nearly dropped the phone. He just hit me. I heard it. Maintain control. Do not increase to an unsafe speed. That was sensible advice. Unfortunately, terror had already placed its foot on the accelerator. I reached 70. The sedan stayed behind me. It struck my bumper again, harder this time. My rear tires slipped on the wet road. I corrected the steering and managed to stay out of the ditch. Ahead, I saw a vehicle parked diagonally across my lane, a white pickup truck. Its hazard lights were flashing. A man in a reflective vest stood beside it, waving a flashlight. For one stupid second, I thought help had arrived. Then the dispatcher said, "There should not be any road crews in that area." I slowed down. The man in the reflective vest stepped into the center of the road. He held up one hand. The pickup blocked most of my lane. The opposite lane was open, but only just. I realized the Crown Victoria hadn't been trying to force me off the road. It had been steering me toward the pickup. "They have another person ahead," I said. "Can you safely pass?" "I think so." The man in the road continued waving the flashlight. As I got closer, he reached beneath his vest. I didn't wait to see what he was reaching for. I crossed into the opposite lane and drove around him. He swung the flashlight at my passenger window. It struck the glass with a sharp crack but didn't break it. I heard him shout. The Crown Victoria followed me through the gap. The pickup turned around behind us. Now there were two vehicles chasing me. The dispatcher kept talking. She told me to focus on the road. She asked whether I had any passengers. She told me not to drive home under any circumstances. Her voice was calm enough that part of my brain started behaving again. I asked how far away the deputies were. Approximately 4 minutes. The Crown Victoria moved alongside me again. The driver pointed something toward my car. At first, I thought it was a gun. Then a bright beam filled the inside of my vehicle. It was a large spotlight. He aimed it directly at my face. I couldn't see the road. I slowed down instinctively. The Crown Victoria swerved toward me. Metal scraped against the driver's side of my car. I heard my mirror snap backward. I turned away from him and nearly left the road. The pickup moved up behind me. There was nowhere to go. The sedan on my left. The truck behind me. Trees on my right. Then the dispatcher said, "There's a church ahead on your right. Turn into the parking lot and circle the building. Deputies are approaching from the east." I saw the church sign. GRA. See Fellowship, all are welcome. At that moment, I was prepared to test how literally they meant that. I slammed the brakes and turned into the parking lot. The Crown Victoria overshot the entrance. The pickup followed me in. I drove around the church. The lot behind it ended at a small cemetery. I had expected another exit. There wasn't one. I stopped 20 feet from a chain-link fence. The pickup entered the back lot and blocked the only way out. Its doors opened. 2 men stepped outside. One wore the reflective vest. The other wore a dark jacket and a baseball cap. The man in the vest held a metal baton. The other carried something in his right hand. This time I was sure it was a gun. "Stay in the vehicle," the dispatcher said. "Lock the doors." They were already locked. The man with the gun approached my side. The other moved toward the passenger door. The Crown Victoria returned and stopped near the church. The fake officer got out. He shouted, "Police, turn off the engine and show me your hands." The dispatcher heard him. "Do not comply with him. Deputies are almost there." Almost is an unpleasant measurement when someone is pointing a gun at your window. I lowered myself behind the steering wheel. The fake officer reached my car first. Up close, his uniform looked convincing. Badge, nameplate, shoulder patches, body camera, everything. He tapped the gun against my window. "Open the door." I shook my head. He grabbed the handle. "Open the door, or I'll break the glass." The man on the passenger side tried his handle too. I put the car in reverse. The fake officer stepped back. I pressed the accelerator. My car shot backward toward the pickup. The man behind me jumped out of the way. I hit the pickup's front corner hard enough to throw myself against the seatbelt. The impact turned my car sideways. It also created a narrow gap between the truck and the church wall. The gap didn't look wide enough. I decided that was a problem for my insurance company. I accelerated through it. My passenger side scraped along the brick wall. The driver's side struck the pickup, tearing away part of my bumper. The car made a sound like the entire chassis was being opened with a can opener. but it got through. The fake officer ran toward the Crown Victoria. As I reached the front of the church, headlights filled the entrance road. 3 sheriff's vehicles entered the parking lot. Real ones. Marked vehicles. Roof lights. Uniforms that did not appear to have been purchased from the internet. The fake officer stopped running. For half a second, everyone froze. Then the men scattered. The fake officer ran toward the cemetery. One of the others climbed into the pickup. The third disappeared behind the church. Deputies surrounded my car and told me to keep my hands visible. This time, I happily complied. The pickup tried to leave through the main entrance and struck a sheriff's vehicle. The driver was arrested immediately. Police found the man in the reflective vest hiding behind a row of cemetery headstones. The fake officer made it into the woods. They caught him just before sunrise, nearly 3 miles away. The third man wasn't found that night. I sat in the back of an ambulance while a paramedic cleaned a cut on my forehead. One of the deputies came over and showed me a photograph of the fake officer. His name was Dennis Rourke. He had never been a police officer. He had worked for a private security company and had previously been arrested for impersonating a government employee. The Crown Victoria belonged to him. The badge, uniform, patches, and lights were all fake. Even the body camera was fake. It was an empty plastic shell. The gun wasn't. Police searched the Crown Victoria and the pickup. They found zip ties, duct tape, prepaid phones, and several magnetic police decals. They also found 4 purses, multiple employee identification cards, and clothing from 3 local hospitals. That was when the officers stopped treating the incident like a random attempted robbery. Detectives believed the men had been watching hospital parking lots and following employees who left alone late at night. Most hospital workers wore visible identification badges. The badges displayed full names. A full name gave the men everything else they needed: addresses, social media accounts, and work schedules. They used the fake traffic stop to move victims from the highway to the abandoned rest area. Police searched the rest area the following morning. Behind a locked maintenance building, they found tire tracks, discarded identification cards, and a woman's broken watch. One of the cards belonged to a nursing assistant who had disappeared 8 months earlier. I had seen her missing person poster inside our staff break room. I had walked past it almost every night. The dark sedan outside the hospital had been watching shift changes. Leonard's partial license plate number matched the Crown Victoria. The investigators believed the men stopped following me that night because Leonard approached the car. They simply returned a week later. 2 of the men eventually pleaded guilty to several charges. The third man was arrested almost a year later after using a similar fake traffic stop in another state. Police never told me everything they discovered during the investigation. I didn't ask. Knowing less felt like the closest thing to a reward. I changed hospitals after that. I also stopped wearing my employee badge outside the building. But the worst part happened 3 weeks after the arrests. My car was still at the repair shop, so I was clearing out the glove compartment before the insurance company inspected it. Behind the owner's manual, I found a folded piece of paper. It was a photocopy of my driver's license. Someone had written my work schedule across the bottom. Monday, 1:30. Tuesday, 1:30. Thursday, 1:30. Friday, 1:30. Under Friday, someone had added, County Road 16. The police believed one of the men had entered my car while it was parked at the hospital. That was probably how they copied my license. It was probably how they learned my route. Probably. But the driver's door showed no damage. Nothing had been stolen. And my car had remained locked every night. I still think about the fake officer's body camera. The empty plastic shell attached to his chest. At the time, I assumed he wore it to make the uniform look convincing. Months later, one of the detectives called me. He said the forensic team had examined it again. It wasn't empty. There had been a tiny wireless camera hidden behind the black plastic lens. It had been recording the entire time. The footage was transmitted to another device, but police never recovered it. So somewhere, someone may still have a recording of that night. My face behind the wheel. The dispatcher telling me not to stop. The men surrounding my car outside the church. And the fake officer tapping his gun against my window while calmly ordering me to open the door. I haven't driven down County Road 16 since. If a police car signals me to stop at night now, I slow down, turn on my hazards, and call emergency services before I pull over. A real officer might find that inconvenient. That's fine. I can survive an irritated police officer. It's the other kind I'm worried about.